It is the morning cafe. I'm not so sure if it is a very good morning. If you look at the headlines today, pandemonium is what is on the front page of some of the dailies, sokomoko on others, and that's the kind of mood we're waking up to. This is the morning cafe. Karibu sana. My name is Fred Ndimuli. How hot is the coffee where you are?
I'm usually Stanley Yeringita. Typically, I would have said a wonderful Wednesday morning, but then as you say, not really so wonderful. The 7 days of rage continues, and what we expect today, according to the anti-finance bill protesters saying for this particular day, they had set this particular day to visit the Independent Policing Oversight Authority, IPO offices, as well as Inspector General's offices, just to seek justice for Rex Kanyike, as well as even others who have lost their lives following the protest. So that was for last week. That might also be happening today, so we'll be keeping you standby for that. As well as, I don't know how your internet connectivity is. You're probably watching us via YouTube. Alafu in a buffer. Don't worry, we've got you covered.
We'll try and do our best, given the current situation. Of course, as always, we'll have this discussion on state of the nation with some politicians and analysts to stand by for that conversation, just trying to understand exactly what is happening to this country. But a quick look at the dailies this morning, and because of the restraints we have with the internet, when a director, you just have to help us with this one. On the front page of the Daily Nation, pandemonium. That's a big headline on the Daily Nation. On the front page of Taifa Leo, sokomoko. One word headlines today on the Standard.
That's mayhem. We couldn't actually get for Business Daily. Is deadly tax protests leave Kenya facing IMF fallout. They combine the whole process as well as matters business. We couldn't really access the Star and the People Daily Pia.
I think they're also having challenges with internet connectivity. So in as far as the Kenyan dailies are concerned, they're talking about pandemonium, basically what happened yesterday. But it is also what features on the front page of the dailies across the border in Uganda. The big headline on the Daily Monitor this morning in Kampala is Kenya on fire. And they have an image there of parliament buildings. Not really parliament buildings. I think this is Uganda House.
Uganda House, yes.
Yes, on fire. And they say angered violent demonstrations rocked 35 of Kenya's 47 counties. They were keeping count yesterday as protesters breached and ransacked the parliament building, and police shot dead several anti-finance bill protesters in the capital, Nairobi. And they've given this particular story some coverage on pages 2, 3, and 4 of the Daily Monitor. You can imagine that. Have you ever seen us talking about Uganda even on one page? What kind of space can even...
And even extensive coverage.
Extensive coverage of what's happening in Kenya. Kenya on fire is a big headline there. Still on the front page of the Daily Monitor, on the top strip, that's where they've actually reserved some small space for a highlight from Uganda. And they say, angry Museveni sends budget back to house. Unflinching in his new anti-graft war, President Museveni read the Riot Act to lawmakers and in no uncertain terms vowed not to sign the Appropriations Bill of 2024. It is a possibility the president can say, "Atuta sign hiki tu." But then again,
and interestingly,
it's happening in Uganda.
Interestingly, Fred, what I pick from this front page is that for the top strip, this is what Kenya can learn from Uganda.
These are the possibilities. This is one option.
Yes. On the main headline, this is what Uganda can learn from Kenya on the kind of democracy that needs to be even in a nation.
Yes.
So it is Kenya learning and Uganda learning from, we're both learning from each other.
And talking about Museveni, they say the president who sources described as livid, I know another president was livid yesterday, was chairing the Monday cabinet meeting at State House where he reiterated his war against corruption, impunity and abuse of public trust. This daily is not in Kenya, it is in Uganda. Kenya on fire. That's the Daily Monitor. Still in Uganda, the New Vision. Minister, UIA bosses probed. IGG investigation extend to Namanya land allocation and staff recruitment. Matters corruption, still big news in Uganda. But still a mention of what's happening in Kenya there on the top strip. Kenya, Ruto speaks out on riots and details on page 8 and page 27. Yes? Even this one has dedicated more than one page to news from Kenya. That's as far as Uganda is concerned.
Into Tanzania matters, on the front page of The Citizen, they go with other matters, but then they make mention of what was happening in Kenya on the very top strip. They say Kenya rallies turn deadly as protesters breach parliament. That is on page 10. And even in our neighboring countries, even in Africa, they're watching this and they're like, how did you guys even breach the parliament? Talks drag on as traders' strike enters second day. They're also having their fair share of strikes. As of yesterday, remember showing photos of how some of the traders had closed their closed shop. Other matters, ile maneno ya sukari imerudi. They say sugar debate, how Bashe defends nailed Mpina. That is on the front page of The Citizen. Kwenye gazeti la Mwananchi, they spare quite the space for what was happening in Kenya. Wanasema maandamano Kenya balaa. Vijana watinga eneo la bunge waharibu mali na kuchoma moto majengo, magari. Mali za wabunge Eldoret, Nyeri zaharibiwa, polisi wafyatua risasi za moto. Vijana kadhaa wadaiwa kuuawa, wengine kujeruhiwa. Na picha pale ya vijana wasema asilimia ya Kenya ambao ni vijana wenye umri chini ya miaka 35 wanaotajwa kwenye kundi la waandamanaji hao ni asilimia 80 tu. Kwingineko, mgomo kufungua maduka wafika Mwanza, Mbeya. Hivi ndio baadhi ya vidokezo kwenye gazeti la Mwananchi.
Yes, definitely the region and the world is watching what's happening in Kenya with close scrutiny. And this is exactly what we'll be looking at throughout the day. It is the biggest discussion you can see, not just in Kenya, but the region and also the world. We have international media centered in Nairobi with all their cameras capturing what's happening. And we'll be looking at these dailies in a short while. But what else should we expect today? But before that, let's take a look at the traffic situation. You know, news are reaching us, and we do apologize once again because of poor internet connectivity, but we can see these are the major tributaries into town. You can see a deep red somewhere in Githurai. Yes, meaning that anyone using Thika Road, once you get to Githurai, and it's on both sides of the road in Githurai, red, and that's a very long stretch of that section.
Particularly now heading to town.
Yes. There were reports of some disturbances in Githurai overnight, still linked to the demonstrations yesterday, to the protests. There were people who had blocked a part of the road at area, and we are not certain how the situation is. But according to this map, on the roads, there is an issue at Githurai. So if you're moving on Thika Road towards town, or even in the opposite direction, once you get to Githurai, you should expect to encounter some snarl up there. All other roads are looking good from far, because if we try to expand this map, we'll lose everything because of the poor internet connectivity. I think Safaricom and Airtel have already said that undersea cables were cut. We will believe them for now because they're the ones in charge of that.
So tuseme hiyo story iko chini ya maji bado.
Iko chini ya maji. Actually, story iko chini ya maji. Huko ndo wanasema zilikatika. All other roads are looking good this morning. Nothing much to report. On Mombasa Road, Wayaki Way, Ngong Road and Langata Road as well. I'm not so sure if we can be able to expand and take a look at Jogoo Road. We will try. If it works, fine. If not, we'll leave it there. That's Jogoo Road. Let's give it time. But that's the traffic situation today. Apart from Githurai, nothing else to report about as at 13 minutes past 6.
All right. Even as we also wait for that, let me take a look at the weather. So I'll have my backup here. The weather in Nairobi right now, it says, is 12 degrees Celsius. An average kind of and moderate weather expected today. Temperatures as high as 22 degrees Celsius. So not as much as you'd probably be expecting into the highs of at 26 degrees. It will be sustaining at 22 degrees Celsius. That is in Nairobi and its metropolitan regions. Talk about parts of Kiambu, Kitengela, pale at the river as well. And let me take a look at somewhere else. Let's take a look at all the way into the coastal regions as well, into mahali kama Voi. And see, Voi was actually yesterday, in a quite a long time, haven't really seen residents of Voi coming out and joining the protests. Well, pia in a load. Taking a look at Kajiado, 11 degrees Celsius, and that is how some of the parts of the area are looking like. This is after the Kenya Meteorological Department said that we're going to be expecting some dry weather conditions even as we actually anticipate, this is the last week of June. So even as we get into July.
Typical July weather.
Typical July weather. So just monitoring how things are going to be looking like, even as we get into the typical cold July weather. It seems as if in a number of regions, things are going to be getting into some cold season, but then that is just a nutshell of the weather. Getting into our news diary, today is well away from matters hizo protests zote. Today is International Day Against Drug Abuse and Illicit Trafficking, and this will be marked by a national campaign against drug abuse, that is Nakada, at Mathare Police Depot grounds right here in Nairobi. We'll also be following on that. Now to something related to the protests, something I had alluded to earlier. You remember last week on Friday, so this whole, it was dubbed 7 Days of Rage, whole civil disobedience, and expecting the anti-finance bill protesters are expected to today visit Independent Policing and Oversight Authority, IPOA offices, as well as Inspector General of Police, to seek justice for the young people who lost their lives last week. So this is in accordance to what was a series of events that was lined up last week, and the whole flight really went and was shared across social media platforms. So we do expect to see how that will be happening. Yesterday, it had been allocated for Occupy Parliament. We did see quite a number of people coming out and trying to, and actually successfully doing all that. So we wait to see how that will happen. Away from that, something else that we'll also be following up on, East Africa Community Cabinet Secretary, that is Penina Malonza, together with the Intergovernmental Authority on Development, that is IGAD Executive Director Wokne Gabeyehu, will be launching the Borderlands Coordination Project. Stick around to know how this is going to even be affecting you and what will be said in this particular meeting. That, in a nutshell, is a news diary. We'll also be expecting to hear from rights activists and even international observers. Despite the fact that yesterday they released a statement on the protests that happened yesterday, we do expect to even hear more from them locally, and even more leaders as well.
Yesterday, the joint ambassadors and heads of missions issued a statement, and probably other organizations too will do the same today.
All right. That is just a nutshell of what to expect right now, though. Let's get into the paper review.
Pandemonium, that's the big story on the front page of the Daily Nation. They talk about it was a day like no other after a mass of youthful protesters, angered by the government's move to forge ahead with a controversial tax bill, breached security and broke into Parliament buildings, the seat of the country's legislature. Young lives were lost, while hundreds were injured when police opened fire on demonstrators who were taken to the streets in 35 counties across the country. Property worth millions of shillings was destroyed, already shuttered shops vandalized, and business associated with some MPs attacked in a day of heightened pandemonium. Now, this has been covered on pages 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and 12. 10 pages of coverage of the protests from yesterday. And if I can just open, and there are a lot of photos, yes, a lot of photos inside. They call it national shame. As hustlers ran riot as MPs scamper for safety in day of drama. President, Parliament breach act of treason. Yes, the President addressed the nation yesterday and said that amounted to treason. And they call it finance bill crisis inside the pages. Also inside the pages, how MPs voted on report on the National Assembly Committee on the whole House. Yesterday, the members of the National Assembly voted and scrutinized, actually made consideration for each and every clause and amendment proposed to the Finance Bill of 2024 and voted for the same. And on page 9 of the Daily Nation, they give a breakdown of how each member of the National Assembly voted. And you can realize that quite a number of people just voted no. across board, while others, quite a number, were absent from the House. Yeah. So yes, that's the kind of coverage we have on the front page of the Daily Nation. Other highlights on the front page still to do the same. This is a page one commentary by the Daily Nation. They talk about let's reason together. Kenya belongs to all of us. That's a full commentary. You find it on page 17 of the Daily Nation. And then more highlights and photos there on the front page. Today, the front page of the Daily Nation does not give room for any other discussion. But on the back page, another story. 2 NSSF staff and trader arrested in graft probe. They allegedly committed an offense between February 5th, 2021 and January 5th, 2022, where 47 million shillings tender fraud was highlighted. Another story on the back page, MP Dhuo killer sentenced to 15 years imprisonment. Pokis Club owner Paul Wainaina Boyo and his 5 employees have been sentenced to serve 15 years imprisonment each over the murder of former Juja MP George Dhuo. That's a story on the back page of the Daily Nation.
The whole corruption, the 2 NSSF reminds me yesterday, Museveni saying, Ugandan president saying, I'm not joking with you. And he's worn graft very, very seriously.
Oh, yes.
I think it's time even in Kenya, we get some of these statements that I'm not joking with you.
On graft.
Oh, yes. That is the front page of, Daily Nation. Let's take a look at another paper. And tuangazie gazeti la Taifa Leo. Taifa Leo also, well, apart from matters euros, they end a whole other headline pale juu. They really focus on what was happening yesterday. Wanasema sokomoko wa Kenya waandamana maeneo tofauti kupinga mswada wa fedha mwaka 2024. Watu kadhaa waripotiwa kuuawa na mamia kujeruhiwa waandamanaji walipomiminika katika barabara za miji yote mikubwa nchini kupinga mswada wa fedha wa mwaka huu. Maandamano hayo yaliyofanyika katika kaunti 34 yalifikia kilele baada ya wabunge kupitisha mswada huo jana alasiri. Last week's demos was about 18 counties. So this one was an increment of the counties that participated. Pale juu wasema atia mfukoni maelfu kutoka kwa viungo. Baadhi ya masuala ya biashara pale vile vilivyotiwa nakshi kuhugharimia kati ya 3,000. Kwenye masuala ya spoti, Ubelgiji roho mkononi katika Euro. Mechi za makundi michuano ya Euro mwaka huu za kamilika leo usiku. Sasa sijua wanamaanisha leo usiku ama ni jana usiku? Leo usiku.
Gazeti ikisema leo ni leo.
Gazeti la Taifa hiyo, gazeti la Taifa leo hii.
Let's focus on the Business Daily now. On the front page of the Business Daily, deadly tax protests leave Kenya facing IMF fallout. The big image of the kind of activity and the police presence outside the precincts of Parliament yesterday. And a lot of smoke, police on one side and protesters on the other. Those are the images there outside Parliament. But back to the headline. MPs amend bill to remove some IMF-backed taxes. Lender bets on state commitment to ease political risks. Parliament yesterday approved the controversial Finance Bill of 2024, backing recommendations to withdraw some taxes, including on bread, airtime and cars, that were part of a package of reforms Kenya had agreed to implement in a deal with the International Monetary Fund. So where does this leave us in as far as our relationship with the IMF? That is what is on the focus on the main headline on the Business Daily. Other highlights, still on the front page of the Business Daily, on the ticker. Kenya's dump 600,000 feature phones in just 3 months. Or dump.
Dump, yeah.
Kenya's dump 600,000 feature phones in just 3 months. Wow. So Kenya's abandoned the active use of that number of phones during the 3 months to March this year in a shift that has accelerated the usage of smartphones. So zile katululu kale kadogo zinatupwa. Jubilee shareholders approve 1 billion shilling dividend. Elsewhere, KRA, DPP turn up the heat on alleged tax cheats. And finally, petroleum levy collections down 593 million shillings. That's the front page of the Business Daily this morning.
And to the front page of the Standard. And today, Standard has It's a grayish backdrop, unlike other days, and that is the only story focused on this front page on yesterday's demonstrations. They say deaths, mayhem. They also say that in an unprecedented move, youthful protesters overran house as at least 13 protesters are gunned down, hundreds others injured, and property worth millions of shillings destroyed in fierce day-long countrywide battles by youths with the police. President William Ruto said the events were treason and vowed to hit back. They also have quite the extensive coverage on this, I think from pages 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 on that. They also say protesters occupy house and KDF deployed to quell the riots. Finance bill sails through. That is what they're really focusing on. They also give a collage of photos and the numbers there. So definitely more is inset in this particular bit. On the front page of the Standard.
They've given the numbers, at least on the front page of the Standard, there are numbers of injuries and deaths. According to the Standard, 13 people died. And quite a number of people are still in hospital recuperating from gunshot wounds and other wounds inflicted on them by security agencies yesterday as they tried to quell the protests. Now, we do realize we do have a challenge with the internet, and probably that's the reason why we don't have the People Daily and the Star, but we'll be still trying to look for the paper. I think I saw a front page somewhere, but I'm not certain if it's authentic, so we won't go with that for now. Let's take a look at the cartoons.
And I think the cartoon that we now have is Daily Nation. That should be on the page 17 of Daily Nation. A tone-deaf parliament, and a number of protesters there holding smartphones, and it is a hashtag on these smartphones as a cloud of tear gas serenades through them. That is what just a whole reflection of what really happened, not only yesterday but also even last week. Now that we have Standard, can also take a look at even other headlines that focused on this paper. Which reminds me again, I mean, even for this paper, they reported to have received threats to close. So the fact that they even have even the Daily for today. The cartoon is on page 12, drawing a contradiction between then and now. Then there will be no more abductions, no more murders, and the police will uphold the rule of law. Right now, they have this gentleman wearing, I believe that's in ile uniform in Inspector General of Police, Hoover. He's standing on top of a geneza. And they say now, and there are quite a number of flyers around him, free Franje, free Otero, free justice for Rex. Well, he's holding an AK-47. That is just a reflection of what is happening right now.
All right. Those are the cartoons this morning. And going back to the Standard, I do realize I've also given quite some coverage to this piece of news. It's covered on pages 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. 10 pages also. Yeah. So if you open the Standard on page 2 and 3, it's just pictorial of the issues there. They've also included a photo of part of Parliament that was set on fire yesterday. Protesters set Parliament buildings on fire during the anti-finance bill demos. More photos of MPs trying to exit Parliament. Kenya grinds to a halt as Gen Z protesters make good their threat. Mayhem in President's Rift Valley backyard. These are just some of the headlines inside the Standard. On page 6, we have a very interesting photo of Embakasi East MP Babu Owino escaping through the fence of County Hall. He's actually jumping over the fence during the Finance Bill 2024 protests in Nairobi.
And you remember the day before yesterday, he had urged protesters that they are invited to Parliament, they can come and eat. And I think there's some people who took that very seriously.
Oh, yes. Some headlines that we may miss out here. It's actually on page 6 of the Standard. They talk about protesters torching Embu Governor's office, vehicles, and UDA offices. Violence rocked Embu County as protesters set ablaze the governor's office, vehicles on the premises, and then turned their rage to the area UDA offices. Some of these pieces of news probably may be drowned by what was happening in Nairobi, but a lot more was happening. And you see even in Uganda, the Daily Monitor quotes that this was happening in at least 35 of the 47 counties. On page 8, police clash with protesters who almost stormed Coast State House.
Yeah. Before you actually cross over to page 8, another conversation that might also be forgotten really has to do with this demonstrations. On page 7, schools face disruption as youth demonstrate in the city. So learning in various parts of the country experienced a disruption over the ongoing demonstrations. And so they say, even as parents were advised not to send their children to school. Today was actually the set date for the midterm break. Today, 26th, up until Friday. So some schools were actually meant to break as of yesterday. That might have forced some schools to even push this closing to today. So we'll be keeping an eye out to see how that will be shaping up.
Yes, defiant president orders crackdown on dangerous people. That's a story on page 9 of the Standard. And this is what the president said when he addressed the nation at 9 p.m. yesterday. Well, away from matters protests, it's good that we mention also on the back page of the Standard, and this has to do with sports. Even as the protests in Nairobi continued, lovers of football, the Euro tournament continued. Yesterday's results, or Monday's results, Croatia drew 1-1 with Italy and Spain beat Albania. Modric bemoans cruel late draw as Croatia face exit. And those are just some of the highlights from the Euro 2024 tournament. So for lovers of football, at least some break from all this other news that features on at least the first 10 pages of all the major dailies in Kenya. Now we'll be looking at this and a lot more with my panelists this morning. Do stand by for that. A conversation I will be having in studio Jude Njomo, former MP Kiambu Town, Arnold Maliba, Strategic Communications Advisor UDA, and Joe Mutambo, former MP Mwingi Central, will be joining us via video link. Do stand by for that conversation. Well, I do not know if you're able to chime in on it through our social media pages, but do try.
Oh, yeah.
The network is a bit shaky or a bit unstable. Let me say it's a bit unstable. As you said, walisema
history iko chini ya maji, cables, undersea cables zilikatwa. So but if you can also add your voice to this conversation through our social media pages on X at TV47 News and on Facebook TV47 Kenya, and of course you can tag me at Fred Indemuli on X. All right. And Fred, because you've been through all these bits of maneno ya maisha na relationships, who does the money belong to? Is it the wife or the husband?
Pesa.
Yeah.
When it comes to money, forget it.
That is a conversation we're going to be having. Well, away from matters, just helping you relax after running up and down yesterday in different parts of the country. So today morning we steer away from matters, protest and all that, and just have conversations around lifestyle. And that is what we're going to be having. Carol Mashari as well as Dr. Julius Kimani, they're both counselors, and they'll be helping us understand in a relationship, who does the money belong to? How do you have this conversation? It's because it's a Wednesday. We get into cooking. Chef Mike Ganga, he's an executive chef, will be joining us a little bit later on to the very tail end of the show. You don't want to miss it, just to have some new culinary skills. Talk to us on our socials, 2047, on WhatsApp 0793 267 279. We take a short break. We'll be right back.
All right, I'm just trying to see if the network is back. We're experiencing intermittent network internet connectivity. Yes, the main internet service providers, Safaricom and Airtel, have indicated that they're experiencing challenges due to a cut cable, undersea fiber optic cable cuts. But nonetheless, we'll try and continue with the conversation on State of the Nation. This morning, the headlines reading on the Standard: deaths and mayhem. On the front page of the Daily Nation, pandemonium, and on the front page of Taifa Leo, Sokomoko. I'm in studio with Jude Njomo, former MP Kiambu Town, and joining us via video link all the way from Uganda is Joe Mutambu, former MP Mwingi Central. Good morning, gentlemen. Karibu sana. Let's start with you, Bwana Njomo. On the front page of the Standard, they talk about 13 deaths so far and injuries 145. Now, this are numbers by the time the Standard goes to bed is probably 8 p.m. The numbers could be different this morning. But from that perspective, what is your assessment of the situation, just from the number of casualties we've seen so far?
Good morning, viewers. Thank you very much, Bwana Idi, for having me here this morning. After witnessing the mayhem that we had yesterday. If you remember last week, the Gen Zs had very peaceful demonstrations. It was actually the police who were displaying their violence. The Gen Zs were very, very peaceful. But yesterday, we saw that there were so many more people who turned up, some of whom were not actually Gen Zs. So the demonstrations may have been infiltrated by other people. But right from the morning, the police reacted with live bullets. And that was very, very sad. To me, maybe they're the ones who provoked the youth because they found that their lives are in danger and they also wanted to defend themselves. And, you know, this was happened not only in Nairobi. It happened all over the country. In Kiambu, where I come from, there were demonstrations in the morning. And then the same demonstrators walked from Kiambu all the way to Nairobi. You know, I've not seen that kind of spirit before. They came to Nairobi to join the others. People from Githurai walked all the way to Nairobi. People from Limuru walked all the way to Nairobi to come and join the others. So the youth were really dedicated to their cause. And the turnout was so much. So I don't know what happens now that the military has been let out of the barracks and they're on the streets. And I believe the youths, the Gen Zs, they still have their resolve. If you remember, they had declared a 7-day of range, and this was just day 2. So we don't know what is going to happen after that. We don't know whether the president is going to sign this bill into law, because that may provoke more reaction from them. Okay. So we remain to wait and see what happens.
Yes. Bwana Mutambu, you're joining us from Uganda, and the dailies in Uganda also are talking about this story. The front page of the Daily Monitor today, the main story, the main headline is Kenya on fire. And they talk about the fact that these demonstrations were happening in at least 35 of the 47 counties in Kenya. This is a big story, even in the region, not just in Kenya, Bwana Mutambu.
Good morning, Idi. Good morning, viewers. Allow me first to send my sincere condolences to the family, friends of the people, all people, whether demonstrators, the police, or whoever, who lost their lives yesterday. It was uncalled for. I mean, this was a democratic and constitutional right for the youth to demonstrate. And their life matters. The life of those people who died, a lot. It is more valuable than I'll use other means. Having said that, going to your question, that this is a very big story, and actually not only on our region, internationally. The whole world is watching Kenya. And whatever is happening today is not healthy for our country. It is so bad. Unfortunately, we are dealing with with a government who is not willing to listen to our people or what people are saying and what they are saying. What we need to understand and what the government need to understand is that they are talking to their boss. Those youth who went to the street, those mamambogas, those people who vote, those are the boss for Honorable Ruto. And His Excellency Honorable Ruto must understand the boss is talking. They need to listen what the boss is saying. And I want also to remind him that he's the one who created this movement called ASILA. And what I'm seeing in the future, where going forward, is that it is in by ASILA, out by ASILA. And this is what the president needs to take care, because these young men they have a lot of determination on what they are doing. And what we need to understand is that we are dealing with a very fragile, delicate group of people who, one, are informed, are learned, they have the knowledge, and they have the zeal to do what they want to do. And to make the matter worse, they are angry. They are poor. We are dealing with the poor, educated people who feel they have nothing to put in their stomach. And they were promised that they were given hope, and they are not seeing that hope. So this is a movement which you cannot stop by army and by police. This is a movement which you can stop using your wisdom. Read someone yesterday.
We do apologize for the lack of connectivity, but as we said, we're experiencing intermittent internet disturbances and instability, but we'll be getting back to Bwana Mutambu as we continue. But back to you, Bwana Njomo. Looking at the numbers and the kind of casualties we're talking about and this kind of police reaction, yes, you made a mention of the fact that people came from different areas, including from Kiambu, walking all the way into town. And the numbers in town were actually quite huge. Could this be an indication of the fact that police felt overwhelmed at some point, hence this kind of reaction, firing live bullets at protesters?
You know, first and foremost, what caused this kind of reaction? What made these Gen Zs to come out of their homes is the realization that nobody is listening to them. They have tried to indicate, they have tried to use the methods that they know to communicate that they are not happy about a certain situation. But this is falling on deaf ears. Nobody is listening to them. So they go to express themselves the way they know how. Now, to add now salt to injury, and further to that, people who are perceived to their leaders have been hijacked. And for those who have been rather abducted, for those who have been released, it is very clear that it is the police who have done that. So for those who have not been released yet, it is well known that it is police who have abducted them. So if the police is not following the law, because the law is very, very clear about how arrests are supposed to be done, but they are doing it like mikoras, you know? It's like guys are hijacking or things like that. So if the police is behaving like mikoras, they have also decided to behave like mikoras, because, you know, what else can they do? So I would have expected yesterday, after what has happened, that the government would have taken a more reconciliatory approach to their situation. I remember on Sunday at, I think it was Nyahururu, where the president went to church, he had given some kind of soft stand on the situation to Gen Zs. I don't know whether he was trying to please the church members. If you look like people like Kimani Ichung'wah, initially he was very abusive and arrogant about the Gen Z, but later on Sunday he was calling them our children, you know, and that they have been very friendly and tribeless and all that. And I thought they were going in the right direction. But from the speech that the president made yesterday at 9 o'clock, he was categorical that he is in charge and he will not allow this to happen. So I don't know what is going to happen, because really, if he doesn't listen to the youth, they have come out, they have said we have nothing to lose, and they will continue.
Do you feel like the kind of reaction we saw from the police during the day was in tandem with the tone that the president employed at night, that this is a mode of operation going forward? Because a lot of people had criticized the kind of police action on the initial days of the protests, which were largely peaceful, that police had come out and were a bit too rough on the protesters. But listening to the president yesterday and seeing the kind of reaction from the police shooting demonstrators directly with live bullets, do you see a congress? Do you feel that, yes, it actually aligns?
I really sympathize with the police, because they are under command and they have to obey the commands that they are given. And we could see some of them, restraining themselves, from overreacting. But in every situation, there are always those people who don't care and they can do whatever they want. If you remember, there was a sniper on the rooftop of Parliament who was killing those people. He's the one who was shooting those people. And he even shot a colleague from top there. And what I was wondering, when you are a sniper and you're up there, you can aim at the knee. But this guy was shooting to kill. And he killed so many of our young people. So I think the police, some overreacted. Some were exercising restraint. If you remember, there was a young man who really lectured the police from the top of a lorry where he had been arrested. Then he told them, let me go. And they just allowed him to walk away. The police could understand this young man. They could understand what he was talking about. And that is why they allowed him to walk away. So the police are also in a situation where they also don't know what to do. But a good number of police yesterday misbehaved, and they overreacted to the youth. And it is very, very sad that we are sending out our policemen to Haiti when we need them here.
Yes.
When we are releasing our army from the barracks to come and do the work that the police is supposed to be doing.
Okay.
What kind of international image are we trying to create? That we can release our police to go out there and serve other countries. Well, in our own country, we need more police than we have. And we are using army to do the work that the police is supposed to do.
Let's bring in Bwana Mutambu to this conversation. Bwana Mutambu, are you still with us? And if yes, you watched the kind of reaction that Kenyan police had towards the protesters, and probably it may be because they were overwhelmed at a time when too many protesters across the country are active. And in Nairobi in particular, some of them even moving on foot from Kiambu towards town. The numbers were simply overwhelming. Could you say that this is a reason why police resorted to using live bullets?
Police to use live bullets on people who are exercising their constitutional rights. That should need to be understood. There's no reason whatsoever. And these people were not harmed. If they were armed, then you could be dealing with people who are harmed, and then the police will have no choice. That is number one. Number two, like I said, I also feel for the police. And I'm also feeling for the army, which has been called in. Because what these youths are demonstrating for affects everyone, including the army officers, including the soldiers, because they have families, they have children, they have their mothers, they have their brothers who are suffering at home. And the same amount of money which they receive after giving their services is also deducted. So they are feeling the same. There's nobody who is spared on what is happening. And they are coming to the streets to do their duty, but under protest in their heart. I know the police in their heart, they are feeling what these young men are feeling, and I know that they feel they are oppressed. So it is these people who are in the street, either police, army, or whoever, they are feeling the same. And this is what we need to understand. Number two, there's a point I wanted to bring in on Duale setting an emergency and calling in the army. And he quoted some laws Defense Force Act and the Constitution, Article 241. That act itself does not give the minister explicit right to call in the army. Those laws spells out very clearly that he can only do so, or he can gazette that after Parliament has approved. And with the mayhem which was there, I don't know whether Parliament sat down and approved the recalling of army to assist the police in any duty. That is the law. And we cannot purport to be protecting the same law, and yet those who are in the seats, those who are in the offices, are the same people breaking the same laws. And this is what is agitating Kenyans. So what we need to understand is, and ask ourselves, why are these people getting so agitated? And I want to say this today. This is not about the finance bill. It is something else. And it is for those who are in the office to find out what is it, so that they can solve it once and for all. But I don't see it ending. I said the other day, and everybody was on my neck abusing me left, right, center. And I told them, the moment you will pass this thing, something terrible will happen. And it is happening. And I'm seeing something terrible happening after the speech of the president, after Duale introducing the army. Because there is, how much can army kill? How many people can army kill? They will kill to a certain number. There is also international laws. There is also international community. But I don't feel the government is getting it absolutely wrong. They are not feeling the people. There is no vacuum in the law, and there was no need to kill people because of finance bill. What is so difficult to withdraw it? And because there's no vacuum, there is still an existing law. We continue collecting taxes with the existing law, and we look at what Kenyans are saying. Because we are passing this bill is not for Ruto. This bill is not for members of parliament. This bill is not for Duale. This bill is for Kenyans. These laws are for Kenyans. And the Kenyans are saying, do not want this. Why can't we listen to them and we solve all these problems? But because nobody wants to listen, this problem, one thing leads to another. This problem will lead to a bigger problem. Which Honorable Ruto and his team, those who are advising him, if there are any people advising him, they need to understand that this is a monster of something coming. For lack of better word, I'll call it a revolution. But they don't want to hear this. But this is coming. Because these people, when this was happening, I was in Eldoret yesterday, and I saw everything before I moved out. I saw everything, and I tell you, these young men are determined. And it's not only the young men now. Even other Kenyans are joining in because they feel oppressed. And there are so many reasons why these people are feeling oppressed. One, we have farmers in this area, in our country, and somebody in the office cheated them. And that person walks free. I mean, even the president could not even do something to say, you step aside, I need to investigate this matter. This person goes to parliament, the same parliament clears this man. All right? And the Kenyans are out there crying. If there's nobody who can hear the cry of Kenyans, what do you expect? Okay. Honorable Ruto promised these young men jobs. Now he's telling them, I'm going to look for a job in Europe or outside, and I get it for you. The same people who he came together with them and they put him in the seat. Now he's ordering police and army to kill them. Who will vote for him in 2027?
Okay.
There's one thing I would like to agree with Mheshimiwa Motambu, that the military is on the ground illegally. Because the Constitution is very clear. If you look at Article 241, 3C, it says the military may be deployed to restore peace in any part of Kenya affected by unrest or instability, only with approval of the National Assembly. Now, the National Assembly has not started to discuss that. But there is such a great hurry to bring the military to the ground because they're in a very desperate situation. If you remember, sorry, I have a cold. If you remember, the only other country this has happened was Burkina Faso, where the public went and burnt the parliament. This happens to states that are failing. And that is where we are headed to as Kenya. Because people are tired of being mistreated. People are tired of being told lies, without blinking of the eye. Somebody tells that we are going to do this, and he knows that this is not going to happen. So even what the president said yesterday, nobody can believe him because they have said so many things, and then these things don't happen.
Okay.
These youth have been promised so many things. But now when you look at the finance bill, instead of delivering those promises that have been made, the finance bill is oppressing people further. Worse still, some of the expenses that have been put in the finance bill are completely unnecessary in a country that is claiming to be putting in place austerity measures.
Let's go back to the issue of the deployment of the KDF, because many are questioning the legality, including yourself. And I'm just looking at the Gazette notice, and signed by Aden Bare Duale, Cabinet Secretary for Defense and Chairperson of the Defense Council, pursuant to Article 241(3)(b) of the Constitution of Kenya, as read with Section 31(1)(a), 31(1)(c), 31(1), 31(1), and 34(2) of the KDF Act, Cap 199. The KDF is deployed on the 25th of June 2024 in support of the National Police Service in response to the security emergency caused by the ongoing violent protests in various parts of the Republic of Kenya, resulting in destruction and breaching of critical infrastructure. This is a clear indication that the police were overwhelmed. At a time when 400 officers have just been sent out to Haiti, and now you're calling on the military. It is the legality of this that we are more concerned about. We saw the deployment of KDF to the northern parts of this country to contain banditry. And there was that discussion also, the back and forth on whether or not KDF should be deployed within the borders of Kenya. Is that the issue we are talking about now?
No, the Constitution is very clear. The military may be deployed, but there are steps to be followed. So these steps have not been followed. That is why it is illegal. So they should go back to their barracks, wait for the parliament to authorize their deployment. And the law goes further to say for the parliament to make that step, two-thirds of members of parliament must agree to that. Now, who has taken that to parliament? Who has voted for that to be done?
As it is right now, parliament
and
has
the last time
recess.
this happened, if you remember, it was in 1982 after the coup attempt on President Moi's government. This is the other time when military was released to the city.
The Constitution allowed it at that time.
Well, I think the Constitution allowed it,
Yes.
for that to happen.
Now, in the absence of the National Assembly that is on recess,
the fear
now,
that people that have is that the same thing that happened in 1982, for those who can remember, may happen today. There was a lot of looting in town, and it is the military who was doing it. There was a lot of abuse of human rights. People were killed, people were shot, people were maimed by the military, So people are fearing, this is what is going to happen?
we've had instances where this country has had serious security threats, including in 2007, where in some instances we saw the deployment of the military to restore order, probably in areas like Nakuru. Don't you think that probably this got to that level?
Well, the level was high, but that does not mean that the law should not be followed. But we have a government that is very keen on breaking the law. The abductions that are happening now, they're not being done within the law. There are so many things that the government now have taken it upon itself to do that are not within the law. And this it may be what is leading also the youth to think in the same direction. Okay. If the government is not obeying the law, why should I be obeying the law? Okay. And I'm not being respected.
Let's get Bwana Mutambu's take on this one. Bwana Mutambu, there are instances where probably heightened insecurity forces the hand of the head of state or security agencies or the National Security Council that has been quoted in this Gazette notice to take action. And in this instance, in deployment of the military. And I'm using the example of 2007. Do you think that the situation yesterday amounted to that kind of threat, necessitating the deployment of the KDF?
No. Number one, these are people who are exercising their constitutional right? There's right to picket and freedom of demonstrate. So these are people who are exercising their constitutional right. 207, it is people who are not exercising their constitutional right. Because these are people who came out with crude weapons to attack others, right? Kenya is not under attack here. It is the democracy, which actually it is the government which is attacking the democracy because they are not using the law, they are not following the law. And that is what Kenyans are telling them. Whatever you are doing, it is wrong, it is not in the law. So we cannot compare what happened in 207 and what is happening today. Because those were people who even some were perceived to have guns. So you can respond a gun to a gun. But how do you respond to a person who is carrying a phone to communicate to their brothers and their sisters with a gun? You know, that is where it beats all the logic. And these people are saying we are peaceful. And they remained peaceful until the police fired the first bullet. So we need to understand who is provoking who is starting this killing, who is sending these people to go and loot. Because the moment you have shot that person and he has seen his brother has died, now that person has got nothing to fear. He has no respect. He has no trust with his government. So he will do whatever he thinks is good for him. And that is where we are today, Edie. If government is cautious to understand what kind of people is dealing with, I will not send army to them. And like you have said, if somebody moves to court today, army that army is out there, ADF is out there illegally, right? And even Duale can be sued by infringing the constitution. He can be sued. And I want to advise those army officers who are in the street, if they can listen to me. Please, you are out there illegally. Go back to your barracks. Let us wait for the law to be, the procedure to be done or followed. Then you come out. If Parliament passes or agrees with what the minister is saying and approves that let us involve army, let us do it. Okay. Today, President Ruto is in State House pursuant to a constitutional right because he was elected. And the court pronounced itself that he was legally elected. So it cannot be constitutional right when it comes to you, and you don't want to follow it when it comes to other people. It is not right. And this is what is agitating Kenyans. Okay. Whatever the government and the president is doing is agitating Kenyans, and I would urge him as my friend, although I don't know whether he respects me as his friend. Okay. I will tell him, Your Excellency, you are getting it wrong with your advisors, because these people are informed. Once Duale quotes that law in a Gazette notice, they go and they Google that law. They are armed with their phones, with the data. So they go and Google that law. What does that law say? And they understand that these people are here illegally. So if you have somebody who is in place legally and another one who is there illegally, who should give the other space? Why would an army officer stop somebody who is exercising his constitutional right to picket and to demonstrate, and that person is there illegally? So who should stop who? It is the demonstrator who should stop the army officer telling you are here illegally. Please go back to the base. So we are putting ourselves to this situation because we are dealing with the people who understand, who are informed, and who has knowledge, and they know.
Okay. Let's focus now on the president's response, his speech that he delivered at night.
Which we sought to protect.
Okay. I think, Bwana Mutambu, we had lost you a bit there, and we thought you already done executing your issue. Let's focus now on the president's speech. Yesterday, many have criticized the president's response as being bland and lacking in empathy. He made only one mention of the people who died. No message of condolence to the families of those who died. No message of relief or hope for those who are injured, whether innocent or otherwise. And many are wondering if that's the kind of speech the president should have given in that kind of situation yesterday.
And there was no mention of even the finance bill that was which the epicenter of all this. He never said whether he's going to sign it or not, or whether it is going to be changed. He never mentioned that. I also felt the same, that he was not very sensitive to the issues that we have at hand. And all he wanted to show is that he is still in charge and is not going to run a government that has this kind of problems and that is going to stamp his authority to make sure that this continues. You know, that to me is very provocative, even to the youth who are not armed. Like Mohamed Abu says, they are only armed with mobile phone. And that is why today we are having problem with our internet. Because yesterday they had promised they are not going to interfere with the internet. Today it has been interfered with. So they want to make sure that the communication between the youths is interfered with. They cannot effectively communicate. So to me, the president was not really sensitive to what was happening. He should have addressed the issues that the youth were demonstrating for. He should have told us whether he's going to sign the bill or he's not going to sign it. Because for a president who wants to be re-elected, I don't think that is the kind of reaction that I would have expected from him. Is he expecting votes from those youth? Mm-hmm. And if you look at those youth, they are not only reacting in Nairobi, they are reacting from all over the country. And let me tell you, those were just samples of the youth. There are so many who were not able to come out to the streets. So he doesn't want their votes, unless there is another way that is going to be used to get elected, not through the vote, which we don't know. Those are not so many votes to be ignored.
Yes.
So many votes to be ignored. So the president was not very sensitive to what was happening, and the chest thumping situation may not go very far. Mm-hmm. The time has come when we have to listen to these young people.
He made use of the word treasonous yesterday. Treason is something that we rarely get to hear in our situation here in Kenya. We had it very much for those who have that kind of benefit of history, probably in the 80s.
During the Georgia times.
Yes, treason, and probably in the early 90s with the agitation for multi-party democracy. What kind of feeling are you getting when you hear the president talk about treason?
You know, when we were in the 80s, we did have the kind of constitution that we have today. We have a constitution that allows those young men to demonstrate and to picket, and that is exactly what they were doing. They may not be allowed to go into parliament, but I think a time comes when they feel we are not being listened to. We must go there and stop this bill from going through. And you know that is going to affect a lot. Is the parliament going to sit today? Is the system within parliament enough to support the work, even if they sat, because
apparently they've gone on recess for a while, and the Senate lost its mace. So I don't know what the implications are.
They can get a Mukwenjo and put there. Yeah. So, you know, and that, you know, parliament, as far as the law is concerned, is a sacrosanct place. You know. So yesterday it was. It was what can I defecated, you know. That is not supposed to happen. And when you see it happening, people are tired. People cannot bear this anymore. The time has come when our government, when our president must listen to the people.
Okay.
He will stamp his chest, they will stamp theirs, and we can't go for. Tell me, who can now come to Kenya today with this, which is going to all the media houses, CNN, all the newspapers in the world, I can see what is happening to Kenya. Who can come to invest in Kenya today?
Okay. Bwana Mutambo, what is your assessment about the tone of the president when he addressed the nation yesterday?
That tone was uncalled for, and I don't believe it came from him. Maybe it's other people who wrote that statement for him to read. Because the president I voted for, allow me to confess this, the president I voted for is not the one who was reading that statement yesterday. That's a different person. You see, managing a country, everybody belongs to you. Those who died belongs to the president. Those who are demonstrating belongs to the president. Those who are shooting others belongs to the president. And it is upon him, the buck stops at him to make sure that he brings peace, because it's the symbol of unity of this nation. So it is upon him to make sure that he brings peace in this country. And he can only do that not by, and I repeat, not by bringing in army. It is by understanding what are the issues Kenyans are raising and tackling the issue. If we don't do that, this will escalate. And you have not seen anything yet. Today, I'm telling you, you have not seen anything yet. I interact with the people. I interact with the Kenyans, and I know how they are feeling and what they are saying. And I said it there before. This is affecting everybody, including Rudo's home. We saw his daughter coming out to support the youth. Now, is he going to arrest his daughter because he supported the youth? Everybody understands the youth are doing the right thing. The only people who are not doing the right thing is the government, because they are using force and they are not following the law. If they follow the law to the letter, this will not happen. But because they are not following the law and they are not keeping their promises, this is what is happening today. It will continue happening. And if the bigger, the mother of all is on its way coming, if you listen carefully, you will hear some footsteps. Those footsteps are the people who are coming to tell Mr. Ruto, we have come for you. And you'll have no option, because you cannot kill them all. And I asked a question, how many can he be happy to hear that they have been killed? As a president, he should not be happy, even one person, not even being killed, but being shot with a live bullet. The bulk stops at him. And if those people killed, those police people killed, they killed through his order, because he's the commander-in-chief. They are there sent by him. If they were sent by their bosses, the bosses goes up to him and tell him this is what's happening, and he consents on what needs to be done. So sending snipers out there, this is the man who should tell the police, don't send snipers, don't carry live bullets, because he's the commander-in-chief, and they will not carry. Tell them to carry the rubber bullets, which is internationally accepted for controlling riots, but not live bullets.
Okay.
For God's sake. Stop abducting people. Because you do it today, the media is out there, those guys are out there, cameras are out there, they will see and they will agitate these people more than you think.
Okay. And we're also joined by Silas Akiro in studio here, advocate of the High Court. Silas, karibu sana, good morning. We're just trying to examine the kind of response, the speech that the president gave, the address to the nation yesterday night. And in particular, I just want to take a look at this 1, 2, 3, 4, the 5th paragraph of his speech. And he said, I assure the nation that the government has mobilized all the resources of the nation's disposal, to ensure that a situation of this nature will not recur again at whatever cost. And that word, at whatever cost, is what I would want to examine at this point. Coming from a day where many people had lost their lives, the use of live ammunition against unarmed protesters, and then the president uses the word at whatever cost. What implication does that kind of statement have?
Once again, good morning to you. I believe the statement of the president was so unfortunate. It was not anticipated. That is not what the public was actually waiting for, particularly when all the news outlets had aligned themselves to bring this very important statement to the people. And then what the president spews out from his mouth is actually uncalled for and should be called out. Because when he talks about at whatever cost, it means he's very much able and willing to go the extra mile to occasion more than the unjustified killings that we saw. It was so unfortunate when you looked at the news, you would not look at the TV again, because somebody's head is split, the content put out on the road. And then the only thing the president can come to tell us that I am more than willing to go beyond that. And the country is not at war with itself. We are not at war with any country. We are not at war with anybody. The mobilization of the resources he calls, those are the KDF. Whenever he talks about mobilization of the resources, are the security apparatus. The KDF, we talk about the paramilitary, the national police, and giving them direct orders to shoot to kill. These are unfortunate situations, and the president's speech should simply just be shredded and put to the gutter.
Okay. But Njoma, let's consider the fourth paragraph of the president's speech. And he says, as I assure the nation of the government's determination to fulfill its constitutional duty of protecting the people of Kenya against all forms of harm, I hereby put on notice the planners, financiers, orchestrators and abettors of violence and anarchy that the security infrastructure established to protect our republic and its sovereignty will be deployed to secure the country and restore normalcy. The president seems to suggest that there are forces behind this protests that everyone believed were organic and purely made up of Gen Zs who are agitating for their own rights and issues. But he seems to be very much convinced that there are people behind this who are funding this kind of anarchy or protest. Do you agree with him?
That statement will be the mother of all problems in this country, because it will be used to victimize. The police will use that statement to victimize whoever they want to victimize. We have seen the Gen Zs mobilizing themselves through social media. Now they want to create some people, oh, you are the ones who financed it. They have their own crowdfunding. They have been doing crowdfunding here. People who have, there are people from even out of the country who have sending them money. You saw the doctor who was abducted here on a Sikh temple when he was collecting blood. Is that funding, could that be classified as funding the demonstrations? If you went to social media yesterday, in fact, the Kebu social medias, there were so many people who they were claiming are funding, including me. I could see they were saying, oh, this has been funded by Judy Jomo, this has been funded by so and so. You know, so these rumors are going to be used to victimize people who are very, very innocent and to create fear among the people. If you remember, all those people who have been abducted and they have been released, they are quiet. We don't know what they were told when they were abducted. We don't know what happened to them when they were abducted. So they are going to use that now to arrest people illegally, to hold them in police cells illegally, even for a longer time than it is stipulated in the Constitution, just to prove that they are doing something towards those who are funding. But the problem is, it will not solve the problem. These young people are not depending on anybody. They are self-driven. They have their own ways of doing things. It was very sad that yesterday there were some businesses that were banned. There were some homes that were banned. To me, that was an extreme, and it's not supposed to happen.
Okay.
And if you look at the way they are doing, they are publishing the property that is owned by members of parliament who voted yes. In fact, when they are offended by a certain member of parliament, they are even publishing the children of that member of parliament. These people are well educated, they are well researched. So if you block this way, they will get another way to deliver, to get where they want to. And my advice to the government, listen to these young people.
Okay.
It may be very difficult to address them because we don't know who to address, because they have their own way. But the other day they had a meeting online with so many people, and it was an effective meeting. I understand Murkomen was in the meeting, the president appeared and disappeared very fast. Maybe use the same medium to have a meeting with them and listen to them. Okay. Of course, they are going to abuse you because sometimes they use abusive language, but I think you have to tolerate that to be able to get the points that they want. But the government must also ask itself, what is this that is so important in the finance bill that it is worth banning our country? Yeah? What is this? You remember in the 2023, the banning issue was the housing levy. And the government pushed it through our throats by force. Now they are pushing us again on clauses that people are really rejecting. If really those clauses are that important to the people of Kenya, why are they so important to the government that it had rather ban the country than to withdraw those clauses? If it is renovating the office of the deputy president, I am sure it is not leaking. It can wait for one more year when the economic situation is better, then they can repair it. Because those are the things that the young people are against. They are against funding of the office of the first lady, office of the wife of the deputy president, you know, and the way the money is spent, you know, to bring in preachers and that kind of thing. Those are the things that should be put aside.
Okay.
Yeah, so that now we can move our country forward in a way that people are in agreement and are happy about the way the finance bill has been passed.
Okay, Bwana Mutambu, we continue examining some of the words the president used in his address to the nation yesterday. And on the very last paragraph, it reads, and I quote, "The government will therefore uphold its constitutional mandate to secure our nation and its development, and shall treat every threat to national security and the integrity of our state as an existential danger to our republic." He continues to say, "Accordingly, I assure Kenyans that we shall provide a full, effective and expeditious response to today's treasonous events." That's how he ended his speech. That many people say was a threat. Do you agree with them?
I don't think there's any threat in our country. It is government who are feeling threatened. It is those who are in the offices feeling threatened of their jobs. The country is not threatened. I told you I was in Eldoret, and I walked in the street when people were demonstrating, and nobody harmed me because I'm not a threat to them, and they are not a threat to me. If President was behaving in a manner which is accepted by Kenyans, he would not be in this position today. He is in this position because of himself and his people who he appointed, who he chose to work with. And that is what Kenyans don't want. Parliament and the members of parliament, what they do in parliament, they represent people. They don't represent themselves. They don't work for themselves. They work for people, representing them as per Article 1 of our Constitution. Kenyans gave those powers or duties to members of parliament to act on their behalf. And when they tell you, we sent you to act on our behalf, but we don't want you to vote this bill in, then the president calls those members in parliament, in State House, and he tells them, vote this direction. Then he is fighting with the people who elected the members of parliament and equally elected him. And this is what we are getting. The statement of the president is it was uncalled for, and I repeat, and I have no fear when I say that. It was unnecessary. Not only the last clause, but the last sentence, paragraph, but even paragraph 7. When you read it, that accordingly I have directed all organs of our national security to deploy all measures to thrash any attempts by dangerous criminal. I want you to underline that. Dangerous criminals. Where were criminals? Somebody who is telling you I'm peaceful and I don't want this bill. How do you call that person a criminal? How do you call your boss criminal? You see? Between that person who went to tell Moses Wetangula, get out from this parliament, we don't want this bill, and the sniper who was at the rooftop killing people, who is a criminal among those two? When you listen to what president is saying, you don't understand nothing and you don't know where he's coming from. This country is not at war with anyone. These youth, they are not fighting anyone. I understand there's a right of, the protection of property. They are not destroying anybody's property unless they are provoked. Even in your house, if you push your cat to the wall, it will turn around and maybe it will harm you because you are the one who has pushed it to the wall. So it is the government youth pushing these youth to the wall until they act the way they're acting. The the voters who elected Honorable Sudi, and he's my friend, and I feel for him on what happened to his premises. But they are telling him, please do not vote for this bill. We are the one who elected you. But he tells them that he can do whatever you want and they can go to hell. So going to hell is going to his club. You need to understand. He's going to his club and tell him, okay, fine, you voted, we sent you, the money you are getting out of our sweat, we are going to drink the Heineken and the other drinks which are there. So they are being provoked. And the moment we understand that the government is provoking the youth, the president will have a time. It will cost him nothing. It will cost the president nothing. It will cost this nation nothing. Leave alone what he's saying under our cost. It will cost him nothing for him to instruct a speaker, please withdraw that bill, or for him not to sign the bill and return it to parliament. He will restore sanity and people will start gaining confidence in him. Okay. But the moment he uses his bravado chest thumping, that I am the president and I can do whatever I want, the people will say, okay, you are the president, we are the one who put you there, and we are coming for you to remove you. It is that simple. The moment he understands that and he puts that in the back of his mind, if there's any space, he will know that he has a solution to solve the problem which is affecting Kenya today. But if there's no space in his back of mind, maybe he may not get it.
Okay. Now, the president, at the beginning of his address, he acknowledged the fact that it was a legitimate expression of the fundamental rights and freedom of assembly, demonstration, picketing, and petitioning of public authorities by a section of law-abiding citizens, which, however, he said was infiltrated and hijacked by a group of organized criminals. At the end, then he comes to the end of his speech and he says, accordingly, I assure Kenyans that we shall provide a full, effective, and expeditious response to today's treasonous events. Do you think that this could be construed to mean to be a threat to the youth of this country who've come out to express their own opinion?
Fred, when you use such terms as response, full, those are very assertive terminologies within the linguistics, and the person who gets these words or internalizes these words already feels threatened, particularly when we put into context or contextualize the authority of the speaker, the person who is issuing the statements, and what he is able or capable of doing. So when we are being told that he is able to mobilize, or rather to issue, or rather to bring to control of all what he terms as criminal or organized criminals, then we already as a nation are threatened by the president's words. I would still repeat that the speech by the president has been highlighted by the former president of the Republic of Kenya, Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, together with the former Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga, in their speeches. They have advised the president on how he ought to have approached this issue maturely, professionally, and as a leader of the country. He ought not to have issued threats at a time when the country needed solace. At least a bit of an ingredient of condolences to those who have lost their lives. But then when you look keenly at the advancements of these the protests, they began by voicing out their grievances without moving into the street. Then they moved to the street and did no harm. And then they escalated it into highlighting, as my friend has just stated here, that they did their own research. Remember, these are learned people. We are not talking about the protesters of the 80s. We are not talking about the protesters of the 70s who are still going to school. These are learned people. If you go to the hospitals, you realize these are the med soups of these hospitals. These are the chief engineers in the Viwandas in this country. These are the top lawyers that we find. They're the ones who are on the streets. Don't look at them as children. These people have just left their big offices to come and express their anger against the president's move. And so, when you want to term them as organized criminals, and they take up guns from some of these police officers, and they don't use the guns. I mean, somebody has just split the head of your fellow. You catch him up, have a taste of his gun, but then you don't use it. How do you term that person as criminal? Mm-hmm. How do you term such a person as an organized criminal? The president needs to face Kenyans and tell Kenyans, I have heard you, this and this and this is going to be done. What is he going to lose if he suspends the finance bill? What is the president going to lose when he tears down the finance bill? It is now on his table. If he signs it into law, we have seen the agitations of the youth. They have escalated their anger, and they're saying it's even going to be worse. Now, he's talking about the financiers. I mean, how many have you arrested? Influencers. Mm-hmm. He's arrested influencers because he has looked among his machineries and not found even a single financier of this protest. No leader. For the first time, Kenyans have been mobilized within themselves. It's like a spiritual net that agitates their spirits from all across the country. 34 out of 47 counties going to the streets. That is a speech, Mr. President. Withdraw your speech and write a new speech to the country. Focus, look into the eye of the youth and tell them this and this and this is going to be looked into, Mr. Fred.
Okay. There's also one part of this speech where he talks about his own position. And if you look at it deeply, one would wonder, why did he find it necessary to talk about his position in the leadership of this country? But Jude Njomo, he says, I shall continue to lead a government that is fully committed to maintaining the integrity of our state, promoting the unity of our nation and enhancing the peace and security of all citizens and their livelihoods. Why do you think he felt necessary to talk about his position? No one has talked about his position so far.
No, everybody's talking about his position. The whole day he's been listening to chanting, Ruto must go, Ruto must go, from morning to evening. That is a reply to that. He's telling them, I'm going nowhere. I will remain here, and there's nowhere you can take me. That is what he's replying to them. He's using a lot of English, but he's replying to them to tell them, you can continue singing, you can continue chanting, but I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to be in charge, and I'm going to rule this country. But what I can say, yes, he has a constitutional right to continue ruling the country, but his life can become very, very difficult. I have never seen in the history of Kenya a president who has lost popularity so fast, like the way Ruto has lost his popularity. You know, even those who voted for him, you know, are tired of his government now, because it has become a government of telling lies. It has become a government that is not thankful to the people who voted for it. It is a government that is suppressing those people who voted for it. A government that is not ready to keep the promises that it gave to its people. And that is why it is losing popularity this fast. So that particular statement, he's addressing to the chanting of Ruto must go. He's telling them, I am not going anywhere. Wow. And that, to me, is just thumping. And like my colleague have said here, I think the time has come when the president and the government must change his stand and show, I'm not saying that it should chicken out, but it must show that it is listening to the people. It must show that it is sensitive to those things that the people are agitating for. What would be the problem if he calls, because this organization of youth is amorphous, it is leaderless, you know? Other demonstrations, like university demonstrations, you can call the student union leaders, talk to them, and they call off the strike. This strike, you don't even know who to contact, because they just communicate through their phones. So they are amorphous. And the government, even through the abduction that it is doing, is trying to create, you must be the leader, you must be the leader, you know? So the government must look for a way of talking to the youth. The government may not be able to act on all their demands, but it must show that it is listening to the youth and it is making an effort to take into consideration the demands that they are doing, even if they are not able to fulfill all of them. But the chest thumping will not take the government anywhere. Okay. You know, these youth have come out from all over the country. Even if you get out all the military in the streets, the military will not be as many as the youth, you know? So they will continue doing mess. If you remember during the Mau Mau, there were much, much fewer than the youth that we have. And they were able to kick out the Mzungu from here. Our youth are very, very strong. They will go into guerrilla things. If this doesn't work, if you put the military on the streets, they will do things. They will do things that are going to affect the government. Okay. Because they will, if you block this road, they will definitely make another. Mm-hmm. You know?
Bwana Mutambu, the dailies yesterday on the front pages, I think, of the Standard and the Daily Nation, they were talking about the options that the president has. And most of them were not going beyond 4 options. Probably reject the finance bill, refuse to assent it into law, and a few possibly withdrawing the whole process from Parliament. Those were some of the options. But as the days go by, it would appear that the options are getting fewer and fewer for the president. Now, the option of deploying the military had not been considered by the dailies. Do you still think or feel that the president has more options going forward over the next few days?
As we move forward, the options of the president are becoming less. Today we are talking about 4. It will come a time when you will only have one option to vacate State House. But he has a chance to make good of whatever happened. He has a chance to understand what is it Kenyans want, and he acts now. The only problem, and allow me, and I'm not assassinating his character, we are dealing with a very dismissive president who dismisses everything and every advice and every opinion he dismisses. And by that, he is underrating the power of the people. He is underrating the power of the people. These people, this youth, you are calling them youth, they will be joined by others, including cookers and shoshos will come. Even those babies, toddlers, they will come and crawl there. Will you shoot a crawling toddler? Will you? So if it gets to that point, Mheshimiwa Ruto will have no other options left for him. He will only have one option. The people who are lying to him and who are telling him, we are with you, President, and the people are with you, my good friend Judy has alluded to President losing gravity or losing popularity. He is not only losing popularity, he is losing respect. People are not respecting him anymore. And they are not respecting him because he's inflicting fear to them. Because as a head of state, as a commander-in-chief, the moment you tell people, I'm coming for you, the financiers, I don't know who, everybody start getting jittery. And with this world of digital space, whereby people wake up every morning or any time, and they put a lot of things on social media, calling people names that this is a financial, and that's why I'm feeling, even for my good friend Songo, who was everywhere in the media, that is financing. And this is a person I know very well. We are struggling together. If we had that money, he could even share some with me. So I don't know. People will be targeted. People will be targeted for what President said. And he's giving instruction to armed people. He's giving instruction to security forces. He is giving instruction. He also has some supporters, by the way, mind you. He has some. He has not lost all of them. Maybe has lost 75%. He still has 25. And that 25 can also be dangerous. Because once he tells them that so-and-so is the financier of what is happening, or once he tells Mani Chungwa, so-and-so is the one who financed burning of your office or your house, what will Mani Chungwa do? He will go and get his 10% remaining supporters and now attack the other person, retaliate. So what president is setting is a very bad precedent by whatever means. Those means or whatever cost. What cost is that? What other cost would he love to see? A cost of a dead person, a cost of life, somebody who has been shot and killed by KDF or by the police or by the snipers. How much is that cost compared to calling a press conference like yesterday and say, I am the president, I'm not going to assign to this bill. So people, good Kenyans, go home, relax, wait for me. All those youth would have gone home clapping and singing his praise. But he comes and calls them criminals. Now, I mean, what do we take of him as our national, as a symbol of our national unity, as a peacemaker, as number one peacemaker in this country? How do we partake of him when you call me a criminal and I know I'm not? You see? So the options you are talking about are getting slimmer and slimmer. From 4 to 2. Maybe today he has 2. Maybe after tomorrow he'll be having 1. Who knows?
Wow.
So if I were him, I would act when I have one more option to choose. And I choose the best one, which is to calm down the country and bring peace. That is the option I will take. I will not take an option of confronting the person who is telling me I don't want this law.
All right. Thank you, Bwana Mutambu. Silas, options for the president going forward?
Right now, the president, as Mutambu has said, still has a few more options remaining to avert more anger from the public, and that is to hear them, hold a dialogue. I mean, they have outrightly said that if you pick 1 or 2 influencers and take them State House, that they shall not be speaking for the masses. You just come out and tell the public, address Kenya as a whole, because it is Kenya against the president, not a few TikTokers or a few Facebookers against the president. It is the whole of Kenya. If you hear the parents of the Gen Zs who are protesting, they are in support of what their children are doing. If you hear the grandparents, the whole nation is in support of what the protesters are doing. Even the churches today are in support of what the Gen Zs are doing. So don't gather a few people into State House, give them tea, and then come out to tell us that you have addressed the nation. No. Do not even call any of the youth to the State House to speak to. Simply give a speech to the nation and highlight. In fact, although they do not have a singular document, if you look at the placards, you can be able, your communication team in the State House are able to piece together the demands of these people. Because there are demands from Eldoret, your backyard, there are demands from Kisumu, there are demands from Mombasa, there are demands from Nairobi. Put all of them together. Employ guys to look at the placards and put down the demands of these youth and then address the demands. Once you address the demands and the youth continue to riot or protest, then indeed we shall qualify your treason statements. But if you address these demands, I am sure, 100% sure, that the country will be peaceful. So the options that Mr. President has is to simply not assent to the bill. But then we do not expect him to do that, because there are allegations from members of the parliament publicly confirming that they have been paid 2 million Kenya shillings. So the payee and the payer is the one to now sign the bill. How do we expect him not to sign it? Mm-hmm. So the president should simply take the bill to the gutter or return the bill back to parliament and stop interfering with the parliament, and by which parliament is now the people, because the people already breached the National Assembly, took out the symbol of authority. It has to reconstitute if we are to follow the law democratically. They have activated Article 1 of the Constitution, and they have taken over the authority of Parliament. So Parliament really, as Willis said it yesterday, Parliament is non-existent. The Kenyan Parliament is non-existent if the law is to be followed. But however, the president needs to just throw that to the gutter. Tell those people who came to supervise him whether he's doing their bidding, go back and tell them that the people have refused. Simply inform the people that are doing his supervision that the people of Kenya have declined. They have denied.
Who are you referring to?
They have refused.
People who are doing the supervision.
We know them. We know them. Everything is in public. It is stated that, we've seen some members of parliament coming live on TV saying that this finance bill has been drafted by the nation. It's been drafted by people abroad who are bent on making Kenya poorer and dependent on them. And that we refuse as a country. We cannot accept outsiders to interfere with us. We want a country that your coin counts. If I give my tax, I want to see roads. I want to see hospitals. I want to see my tax being operationalized to help me, to be brought back to me as an assistive implement to me. So the IMF, the World Bank, the United States, we are not afraid to call them out. Please leave Kenya alone. Let the president work for the people. And the president should listen to us, not the IMF, not the World Bank, not the United States, not the EU. Listen to Kenyans and do the bidding of Kenyans.
Bwana Jude Njomo, you've been a member of the National Assembly, and I want us to focus now, as we come to the end of the show, on the conduct of the National Assembly. We've talked about the protesters, we've talked about the president's response. In between here, there was the action by the members of the National Assembly in considering the various amendments and proposed amendments to the Finance Bill of 2024, and the action they did. They passed this bill in a record 2 hours. Yes. A lot can be said about the conduct of the National Assembly. It would appear we're excusing them from a lot of this.
Before I talk about that, I want to support what he's saying, that Kenyans need to be listened to when this kind of bill is coming to play. And there have been a lot of talk that this is not a Kenyan bill. It's a bill by those organizations he's talking about. And this calls for a question. Our president has been very vocal about international financial new infrastructure, because what we have right now does not favor Africa at all. And he has talked about this in many instances, and I really support him in that, because we as a country, we get loans at very high interest rates, where other countries in the first world, they get the same loans but at lower interest rates. Why the disparity? You know, we should access those loans like any other country. But that is one side of his mouth. The other side of the mouth is doing these kind of things that are being demanded by the same institutions that he's talking about. So instead of now following those instructions, he should listen to Kenyans and do things that are right for Kenyans. As far as the members of parliament are concerned, that house stopped being parliament some times back. Now it's like a choir with speaker there as a choir master. Whatever the government want, they pass. Those members don't listen to what the electorate are saying. And this finance bill is a very good example. People came out very clearly. They gave out their public participation, and they said they don't want this bill. See what is happening now? The members just went ahead and passed the same bill. I know there were some amendments, a few of them, but those were not enough as far as the agitators of the finance bill were concerned. They want the whole thing scrapped. If I were to advise the president, although I know I will never do that, I would tell him, take that bill back to parliament. Recall the parliament, because the parliament has to be recalled, because even the military is out there illegally. The parliament must pass for the military to be out in the streets. So recall the parliament, take that bill back to parliament so that it can be debated further. Propose the clauses that must be removed from that bill. In any case, we don't have to build our country in 1 year. We don't have to attain all those things that we must do with a $4 trillion. You know, the other day somebody pointed out something that came out very clearly, that our budget is 4 trillion. If you compare with our neighboring countries, Tanzania, Burundi, and I think Uganda, for the three countries, it's less than 4 billion or 4 trillion. Yet their population is like 3 times our population. So there's some arithmetic we are not doing right. I am not saying we are at the same stage of development. We may be ahead of them. But that does not mean that we have to break our financial backs for us to remain where we are. A time comes when you have to review your position and review the way you are spending your money, you know, for your own survival. People are feeling now we have been stretched to the limit. We need some leeway, you know, for us to rebuild ourselves after the COVID, after the financial problems that we have gone through, dollar losing value. There's so much problems. So why do we have to attain all those developments? We can take a back seat, slow down development, so that people can regenerate their income, you know. So to me, Parliament has failed the people. And that is why I think the Gen Zs had this call to occupy parliament because they feel that they have elected people to go to parliament. The people they have elected to represent them in parliament are not representing their interest in parliament. So they are going back to clause 1 of the Article 1 of the Constitution, where you can represent yourself. And that is what they were trying to do yesterday.
Okay. Bwana Mutambu, of course, members of the National Assembly will argue that they actually did their job. They considered all the proposed amendments to the finance bill, and they passed the amendments, and some of the contentious issues were done away with. The motor vehicle tax, the 16% VAT on bread, and many other amendments were made. Do you feel that they have a right to say that they actually did that?
Whatever they did, is it enough? Is it good enough for people of Kenya? Whether they did it or not, if Kenyans who elected them are telling them, please, I don't want this bill, I don't want it amended, I want you to remove it or in totality. It is like you go to a restaurant and you order for food and you are served and you tell the waiter, please, I don't want this kind of food. Remove the plate out of me. And the waiter tells you, you have to eat it. If it is dry, if there is a cockroach in it, I will remove the cockroach and leave you with the food. Will you eat it? So if the finance bill was not good for Kenyans, and they saw what was not good, and they read it, and we went through it, and we saw even if you remove this clause, there is another offending one. And the spiral effect of the entire bill will affect Kenyans. They said, no, it doesn't matter which clause you are removing. We don't want it in totality. Go and make another one. Or you subject it to us, we tell you how to do with it, even though we have done it, but you did not listen to us. So members of parliament, and I said it before, and I told you the other time I was in your forum, in this show, that they don't vote with their own conscience. They vote as how their party leaders want them to vote. And that's the problem we are having with elected members, and they are failing us in big time. They are failing us.
Okay.
And they are failing the people who elected them because they don't listen to them. I said there earlier, these people who are on the street are the bosses of the members of parliament, are bosses of the ministers, are the bosses of...
Okay, Bwana Mutambu, I was just about to ask you to give your parting shot because of time.
And you don't want to listen to the boss. How will it work?
Okay. Bwana Mutambu, final parting shot?
Parting shot is to, Judy said that he wishes to be he could advise the president. But just tell him, whether he listens or he doesn't listen, he has heard and he will hear. And I'll tell him today, Mr. President, this country needs peace. You are the one with the key to restore normalcy in this country. You are the one with the key. Open that door, restore the peace in this country. Forget about your anger. Forget about that president of yours, we know. And everybody actually don't need to repeat to tell Kenyans, I as the president, we know you are the president. We know. And those people in the streets, they know you are the president. So we don't have to remind them because they are the one who put you there. They know who they put. I know who I elected for. Please restore this country to its normal status of peace. Kenya is known internationally as a peaceful country. We have never reached this point. There's no time where Parliament has been touched. Even during 1982, Parliament was not touched. Parliament was touched yesterday, and its credibility is gone completely. Just dissolve Parliament, send people out there, make sure that you yourself, you have also dissolved yourself, and tell Kenyans, if you do not want me, because in other developed countries, if such a things happen, the president will resign the following morning. But here is, I'm the one who won, I'm the president. Please, today you have the right to call off all what is happening in this country by acting as a sober, responsible, reasonable, respectful president. A president who respects his people, the people who elected him. If you do that, your chances of being or staying in the State House will be increased.
Thank you so much.
But if you use force to sign the bill, the law, my good friend, whether you want to listen to me or not, if you sign that bill to law, you are going to aggravate Kenyans. Don't talk about youth. You are going to aggravate Kenyans more, and they will hate you more.
Okay.
And it's not about the vote now. It's not about voting you in.
Asante sana Bwana Mutambu.
Whether you come back in or not.
I think the point has been made. Thank you so much, Bwana Mutambu. Silas Akiro, final thoughts? Just about 30 or 40 seconds.
Thank you so much. My parting shot, like Mutambo, would be to advise the president, because he seems to lack advisors or proper advisors. Now listen to the people of Kenya. Listen to the owners of the offices, listen to the voters, listen to their demands and act upon the demands. Do not sign the bill. Mr. President, do not sign that bill into law. Take it back, not for amendment. Let us relook into it as against the current or the present economic conditions. Mr. President, once again, Mr. President, do not sign the bill into law.
Okay, thank you. And finally, you get to wrap it up for us.
In 1982, after the coup that was there, eventually there was a commission of inquiry where the former Attorney General, Charles Jonjo, was declared to have been the one who was the mastermind of the coup. We have been told by the President's speech yesterday that there are some financiers. I am not a prophet, but very, very soon, a very senior member of the government will either be put through a commission or will be accused of having funded this hula baloo. And many other people are going to be accused of having funded the demonstrations. And there's nothing wrong with funding them, because you are not funding an illegality, you are funding people to go and exercise their democratic right. But this is going to be used to victimize people who are innocent. They're going to be accused of having financed the demonstration. Okay. But if I were to advise the president, please do not sign the finance bill. Okay. Take it back to Parliament so that it is going to be rectified, so that it is at par with the requirements of the public, and it is reflecting what the members of Parliament, what the members of public want. Okay. It is made for us. It is not made for other people who are out of the country. It is made for us as Kenyans.
Thank you so much. Jude Njomo, former MP Kiambu Town, Joe Mutambu, former MP Mwingi Central, and Silas Akiro, advocate of the High Court.